Hey everybody, I want to take y'all back to 2014. This is when I was at a peak of one of my ventures into my addiction. At this point in time, it was just about anything I could get my hands on. It's always been mainly down, but at this point in time, I was homeless. I was a vacuum salesman, part-time. Needless to say, that didn't last long. And it's mid-June at this point, all right? I'm sleeping behind dumpsters by my work so I can get to my job on time when I did go. Most of the time I was sick, couldn't even show up. But I remember one day at the job, with this job, they would drive you out the neighborhoods and they would drop off like 8 to 10 of us. We'd go knock doors. Hey, blah, blah, blah. Would you like to buy a vacuum, basically? And we would give them a demonstration, try to sell it to them the best of our abilities. And I remember walking down the sidewalk with this chick that was working there with me. And I felt something like thump in my heart, my chest area. And it brought me to my knees. And besides addiction, I was a healthy person. I never really had no issues, such as health-wise. And it brought me to my knees. I started sweating real bad. Granted, it was really hot outside, and I was dope sick. So I told the boss, whatever. He come back with the van. He let me sit in the van the rest of the day. It was hot. He let me chill. So that's what I did. Keep in mind, I don't have a house to go back to. I didn't have nowhere to go at the time. My pops were pissed off at because of the things I was doing and ripping and running. And so finally, I called my daughter's mother. We were still together at this time. And she ended up picking me up that day. I think I actually got to stay somewhere that night and then stay outside. And when I stayed there that night, I felt like I had the flu super bad, but I just, chalked it up to me being sick. So fast forward throughout the night, I'm sick as I've probably ever been in a long time. It was worse than being dope sick. And the next day, I got fired. I couldn't go to work. So the next day, it's scorching outside. It's 90-something degrees, mid-June. And I had nowhere to go. I didn't have no friends. Every one of my friends were junkies. And none of them was going to pull you in, at least not around here. And so I got dropped off at this parking lot, close to a church by my father's house. And keep in mind, we're not really on speaking terms at this point. But my pops is my pops. And I'm sitting at the church. I didn't have a cell phone. I didn't have no money. I think I had like a water bottle with me. And I'm dying sick, sweating. My daughter's mom had to go to work. She was dropping me off. Basically, like, fend for yourself. And hours had passed, and I think I walked over to a house or to a church I was sitting at and asked to use the phone. And I called her and I was like, man, call my dad, call somebody. I need help. I need somewhere to lay down. Like, I'm dying out here. And finally my dad's like, all right, bring him. So my dad literally lived like 5 minutes down the road. We get to my dad's house. And my father, he's also struggled with addiction throughout his entire life. So it's a very relatable subject between me and him. And he don't like seeing me down bad like that, And he laid me up on the couch, tried to feed me, asked me was I hungry. I was like, no, I'm ready to die. And I ended up eating a cheeseburger, I think, and I might have drank a beer or something. And I ended up scoring off of something slight, something that usually wouldn't even nip the bud. And it made me feel better long enough to actually get some food down and get up and get moving and kind of talk. And I think I drank a beer or two, like I said. And within 45 minutes of that good feeling, I was deathly sick again. I ended up at my dad's all that night. And the very next day, my dad's like, yo, we gotta go to the hospital. And then this is OD, this is too much. And so we went to one hospital. Keep in mind, I live in Virginia, so we went to one called Mary Washington, where I was born at, actually. And rewind that, actually, I went to Stafford Hospital first. They told me I had gastritis or something stupid. Misdiagnosed me, needless to say. And so we went from there, went back home. It only got worse. I started puking blood. So we said, we got to go back to the hospital. My dad didn't drive at this point in time, so we had to call my grandmama. My grandmama drove all the way down here to pick us up, took us to the other hospital, the one I just said, Mary Washington. And we're there. I'm in the emergency room, all right? And I wrote down, the piece of paper, tell you what's going on, what's wrong. And I took it back, and by the grace of God, one of the OR doctors, the surgeons, come out and was like, bringing back to the triage. They did, I think it was a ultrasound is what they did of my chest and my stomach, the one you got when you're pregnant. Yes, the ultrasound. And he come back in the room like no more than 10 minutes after they did the test, and he's like, we need to get you into OR yesterday. I'm like, what? Like, keep in mind, I'm like dying sick, like dope sick and sick. And he's like, we need to get you into OR immediately. Like, you're dying. I'm like, what do you mean? And he was like, we have to do open heart surgery. That's the topic of the story. I thought I was tripping. I thought I was like hearing stuff that really wasn't even being said. He's like, no, we gotta go. Like, Mr. Banks, come on, let's go. And they took me to the back and immediately prepped me for open heart surgery at 21 years old. What they had seen was a major blockage in the, excuse me if I say this wrong, the aorta valve in my heart, one of the main valves, I guess, and it was only working at like 10%, something like that. So my blood pressure was super low, and that's what was making me feel so sick. So they took me back to the back. I still, at this point, it was bewildering to even think that that's what they were about to do. They started prepping me for surgery immediately, had me back there, and I remember telling them that I was on Suboxone, and they kind of threw a weird face up to the doctors and the nurse, and they didn't know what to do about pain medication, pre or post. I was like, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. They ended up taking me back, prepping me, put a PICC line in me, put me back. Long story short, they ended up cracking my chest open, partially replacing the valve in my heart, and yeah, well, they were doing that. And while they were in there, they noticed that there was a hole in the back of my heart the size of like a quarter, a $50 almost, and it had been there for a long time apparently. And it's funny because every time that I used to do dumb things and go up, I used to always get bad chest pains, so that was never my cup of tea. And lo and behold, it turned out that was why my heart wasn't good. I had basically destroyed my heart throughout at this time it was probably 9 years into my addiction. And at the time I was intravenously using subs, anything that you could possibly think. And but that right there, that specific, what I just said, subs, was the reason that the valve in my heart had coagulated up with all the mixture of gunk. But when they opened it up and they pulled it, there was almost a orange film, as they said, like the way it looks, the actual medication. But it basically tore that valve apart and shut it down. And I made it through surgery. Cool. I made it through. I'm in the recovery. I'm in the waiting room, in the recovery room, and started going through the process of the pain medication thing. Keep in mind, I didn't know what I was getting into. I didn't know that this was going to be the absolute most pain I've ever been in my life. And so I'm sitting there. I ain't even going to sit here in front of you. I was in tears. I was crying like a B word. It hurt, man. It hurt really bad to have your whole chest split open. And I'm looking down the best I could, and it looked like somebody had dripped super glue all down my chest, down to here. You can still see it. And then I had a tube running out of me where that tube was pulling the excess blood from around my heart from when they did the surgery. And at that time I was still delirious from, I guess, the sedation and whatnot, and I'm in pain, I'm freaking out, cussing everybody out, being an idiot. And fast forward, let's just go through a couple days. At the time my mother was still alive, rest in peace, Mom. But she also actually to the day she passed away, struggled with heroin addiction, and that's actually what took her not too long afterwards. And we were sitting in the room, my mom come down and stayed with me basically the whole time I was in the recovery part. And throughout that time, finally they started giving me pain medication, and I ended up having people come up there and bring me things I probably shouldn't have had. And apparently I had freaked out a couple of times and tried to pull the PICC line out my arm and tried to leave the hospital butt naked, a whole bunch of stuff. Well, almost naked. They found me in a elevator, I think it was. Right, so we're about at day 8 in the recovery, and they're ready to move me to the normal recovery wing. At this time I was in a cardiac wing, and they're about ready to move me downstairs. And I'm like, cool, yeah, let's get it so I can get up out of here. And that day my mom left, my blood pressure dropped like big time. I can't remember what the numbers were, but it was enough to where I was pretty delirious. And no, before you even think, it wasn't because of anything I was doing. But what had happened was this tube that was running from my sternum out to pull the blood out of me, the excess blood from my heart, had been pulled out. One of the nurses had accidentally pulled on it, is what I was told, or I may have well did it. And but that had happened on like day 6, and the blood was filling up around my heart. I can't remember how many milliliter blood clot it was, but it was in the hundreds, something 100 milliliter blood clot, I think it was, around my heart. So what it was doing was applying pressure to my heart to where it wasn't beating. That's why my blood pressure was so low. And they were like, all right, Mr. Banks, time to do it again. I'm like, what? They're like, yep, OR. We got to go back to the operating room. I thought they were playing a sick joke on me. No, they pulled my ass back to the operating room again on day 8, I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, day 10. But needless to say, it was right before I was supposed to go down to the normal ward. And they split me open again, second time. This is a different doctor. The first doctor sucked, hated it. And this time, this doctor was pretty sweet. He did his thing. He cleaned up dudes' ugliness that he did on my chest the first time. And within that time is when they noticed the hole. That's when they noticed the hole. And they put an implant patch in the back of my heart. When I left the hospital, I had a little ID card that had like serial numbers on it and all this stuff that's connected to that patch on my heart. I guess it's some type of mesh heart implant patch thing. But yeah, that's how that happened. So finally I make it through recovery again. Everything's going well. It's about time to go home, so to say. I'm up there by myself. My daughter at the time was 18 months, I think it was. She's now 10, almost 11. And yeah, she would come up there and see me, and we'd play whatever. I'd be dad from a hospital bed, basically. And you would think that with all that happening and watching, everybody basically in my family on my side go through the struggles and the hardships of addiction, that I would learn from it. Gotta learn the hard way, baby. But they sent me home with, I think it was 30 Xanaxes, 10 Dilaudid 2s, and 10 Roxy 10s, gabapentin, and promethazine for nausea. Within the second or third day, I had already all the 10s The Zans I had basically blown through within 2 or 3 days. I ended up going to the point where I did so many, I ended up having seizures from it. Ended up back in the hospital again. That's all within 7 days of me coming home from the hospital. And keep in mind, when I come home, I didn't exactly come to a home. But I did get out, and my father took me back because I was basically dying at the time. But we had meshed our differences over at that point. And like I said, you think I would learn from that. You think that someone would learn from that, but I didn't. I just literally, I hit the ground running. This was July that I had come home. I had been in, no, it was August. I had been in the hospital for almost 2 months at this time. 2 months. I got cool with everybody in there. Like, once I had calmed down, they put me in a room on the corner of on the wing. I'd keep my door open and all kind of stuff. Yeah, troublemaker, dummy. Like, this is so, for me to bring awareness to how important it is to know what you're doing before you do it. If you are still doing it, or if you know anybody that is doing it, especially when it comes to, you know, clean supplies, or even disregarding and getting rid of it after you're done with it, what to do with it so someone else don't pick up your bad leftovers on accident, poke themselves, anything along them lines. Like, dispose of things properly. And like, I just want somebody to be able to learn from some of the things that I'm saying. I might not be speaking it correctly, but I know with time and as these videos progress and go on, I'll get in the groove and I'll start doing my thing, and you'll see that. But that was 10 years ago, almost. Probably was 10 years ago. Yeah, almost 10 years ago. This year. I'm happy to say that as of July 26th, I'm 5 years clean. 5 years. But in between then, there was 2 prison bids and a few other bad things happening, but we'll get into some more stories here in the next couple videos. I just wanted to share the video about my heart surgery. What it was endocarditis, which it also gave me spinal meningitis. That's the part I forgot. They had stuck that needle into my back, in my spinal cord, to pull my spinal fluid to check for it, because of how sick I was. And it turned out that I had spinal meningitis and endocarditis. It was bad, and Hep C, which I have been treated for and I am cured of. Thankfully. You know, I'm thankful for a lot of things in this world. And as of now, it's my health. I take my health seriously. I take my life seriously. I've built myself a mini empire that might not be much for a lot of people, but when you come from nothing, literally, no electricity sometimes, no running water sometimes, like, the things you build yourself and the things that you earn, they mean a lot to you. If you weren't giving it to you, I earned everything that I have. I don't have a single soul helping me besides my old lady. We help each other. But I wanted to share that with you guys, man. Please, please, please subscribe, like, share this up so where I can get my word out to other people. Thank you guys. I love you guys. Y'all have a good night.